best estimates. Now, of course, with a young startup, all these questions become more difficult to answer, right? If you're the founder of a young startup, let me ask you the 4 questions to which I need answers, and you're going to see why life is so much more difficult. First question, what are your cash flows from existing assets? You have a young startup. What's the answer to the question? What assets? I have nothing. I'm sitting on a chair. I don't even own it. Okay, that was easy. Then I ask you, how much value do you think future growth will bring in? You say, a lot. So can you be a little more specific? Not really. I don't even have a business model yet. Then I say, how risky are you? Very. But you can't give me past prices and earnings because you haven't been around. I say, when will you be a mature company? And you fall on the ground laughing. You might not even make it through tomorrow. Every question becomes like pulling teeth. And that's why with young startups, people give up. My suggestion is, rather than give up, make your best estimates. Don't put the weight of the world on your shoulders saying, I have to be right. You cannot be right, but you can still make estimates. For the last 4 years, every time you've had a big IPO come up, the week before the IPO, I try to value the IPO. The reason I do it the week before the IPO is you wait till the IPO is priced, that number starts gnawing away at your brain. So when you do a valuation, your number starts to wander towards that number. So this is actually a valuation I did of Twitter the week before their IPO. So what triggered this was I was in CNBC. Once in a while I end up in that insanity. And I was actually, we were talking about Twitter, and there was an analyst there who was very optimistic about Twitter, and he said, so I said, why do you think Twitter is worth so much? He felt it was worth $65 or $70 per share. He said, because the online advertising business is huge. So I said, how big is the online advertising business? He said, I don't know, but it's huge. And this is exactly what gets us into trouble. Is people don't want to talk. It's like China, right? Online, it's huge. So because it's huge, I can pay whatever I want. So I said, you know what, if I want to value Twitter, that's where I need to start. I need to figure out how big this business is. It didn't take a whole lot of research to figure this out, but the entire online advertising business in 2013 was about $120 billion. That's a whole global online advertising business. The biggest player by far is Google, right next to. And if you look at the breakdown, you can see Google is about 33% of the global online advertising. The next biggest is Facebook, and then you have a splintered business. So that's the business right now. I do know that online advertising is becoming a larger and larger portion of overall advertising. Print media is going out of style. So here's what I had to do first to value Twitter. I had to figure out how big this market was going to be, because before I talk about what the revenues for Twitter are going to be, I need to figure out what they're aiming for, right? So I made some assumptions. I assumed that the overall advertising market, which is about $550 billion, so about 20% of all advertising is online right now, that the overall advertising market can grow only about 3% a year, because it's an expense to companies. They can't grow it at 10% a year. But online advertising would increase as a percentage of that to become about 40% of the market. That gave me my end game. It gave me my online advertising market a decade from now. It's about $200 billion. I made it up. And I made it up on the following basis. I looked at how quickly existing advertising media revenues are dropping. Print advertising is falling through the floor. But TV advertising has actually been surprisingly robust. So there are certain kinds of advertising where I think you're going to see other advertising. Billboard advertising is not going to go away. Because if you're driving, it's tough to have online ads. Maybe you figure something out, right? But you'll have a lot of accidents. So I made that assumption. And clearly, that's where you and I can have different values for Twitter. But at least we're talking about substance. So if you made a stand saying, I think it's going to be 60% of the market, okay. So you'll have to go marshal the ammunition for that. So I used 40%, and then I had to make a judgment as to what percentage of that market Twitter would capture.